Howdy ho, Junior Rangers. If you ever watch Full House, you get that reference. It is your fearless leader once again, coming to you back live from my little corner in my apartment, in my living room, down here at home. Please enjoy this lovely scenery in my pajamas, right? And this lovely fire roaring behind us. It is cold. Who knew we'd be having time for fire in April? Just throwing that out there. But it finally is roaring. It took a while to get it going. It's finally roaring to enjoy the backdrop scenery, right? It feels fantastic, by the way, considering it's like 40 degrees outside. Are you going to help me teach today? Maybe? Anywho, we're going to be finishing up World War II today. So we can move into, which you guys are my hybrid class who are watching this, if you are watching this. And Chapter 27 PowerPoint, which is the PowerPoint you need for next week, is already uploaded. It's already uploaded in online because my face-to-face classes that aren't hybrid are a little bit ahead of you. And I've already finished up the Cold War. Well, they hit the Cold War this week while you guys hit... Oh, hush. While you guys hit World War II. So, Cold War for what you need for next week is already online if you want to go ahead and watch that as well. But... again, we do need to finish up World War II for you lovely people, so let's go ahead and get rolling. What do you say? So, we finished, when I saw you guys last time, hashtag yesterday, we got through the Holocaust. We got through, such a light topic, isn't it? Completely light topic, but we got through the Holocaust and America's entrance into World War II. Again, we were highly criticized, as well we freaking should be, for not taking America, or not going to, putting the Holocaust as a priority and making means to try and end it, considering we knew that it was what was happening and that it was going on. But we don't. Russia does, right? Thank God for them, and to those poor people. But anywho, we're not going to go to the Holocaust and have that be one of our priorities, because we are going to head straight into war. Half of our troops going to Europe. Half of our troops going to Asia. And it's kind of interesting because before we get involved, like we've seen in the past before, Japan is absolutely over in their side of the world, kicking butt and taking names in this war that they've got brewing with China. They are just trouncing through China. China is falling detrimentally. I mean, just leap years left and right. But when we get over there, the majority of the war over in Asia will be start out as primarily a naval war. And when our Navy gets over there, we have the battles like the Battle of Midway, the Battle of Coral Reef, and pretty quickly, once we get over there, the war will start to flip-flop for the Japanese, like we've seen wars do in the past. It'll flip-flop for the Japanese, and they will find themselves the first time, once we get involved, once we get over there, they will find themselves on the defense. Well, we will, for this, but when we get over there, from that point on, we will absolutely be on the offense. So the war in Japan will slowly start to fall in favor of the Allied powers and over in Asia, while the other half of our troops will be sent, obviously, to Europe. Now, by the time we get over to Europe, France has fallen to Hitler. In fact, I'm sure we're all familiar with the Arc de Triomphe, right there in the heart of Paris, right? And it's pretty interesting for, I've looked for it online. I can't find this picture anywhere else. Next time, if I ever get to go back to Paris, hopefully next year on our European trip, but, there's a picture hanging in the Arc de Triomphe with Hitler and the Nazi army marching under/through the Arc with all, Hitler in front, all the soldiers, saluting Hitler, which, the Arc de Triomphe is right in the heart of Paris. Which basically shows just how far in he infiltrated, the fact that he got to Paris, and one of the big reasons that France fell. And France absolutely, not long before us falling to Hitler, it's absolutely our first target, our first priority is to get into France like we did in World War I, push Germany out, retake France, go from there. That's what we have our eyes set on. But Germany's expecting this too. It's what we did in World War I. They absolutely can foresee this, and they can see us coming. So they expect it. So all along, long story short, knowing that we're on the way, we've entered this war, they know that we're coming, the Germans have built all along the coast of France this thing called the Atlantic Wall, which was to prevent us from being able to access France by coast. Of course, they got their eyes on the sky looking for us by air, but so they're watching for us by air. They have us blocked, they feel, by coast. But what they don't take into consideration is this little stretch of water. That when you hit the French coast, there's this little channel of water that goes up into the heart of the country of France. This thing called the English Channel. Hashtag channel of water. Catchy, innit? And that's where we're going to go. Now, we talked a little bit about yesterday about the people in the Nazi army who were either involved with the Holocaust or with Hitler personally himself and could not justify the type of things that Hitler was having them do. Right? And a lot of them left the Nazi army. Some of them, hundreds of them, came to the Allied powers, offered their service, their aid to us, and or to act as a double agent, right? Which, that is what we're going to see happen. Per se, we're going to see many Nazi soldiers come to offer their services as a double agent, and we're going to use them to our advantage in this. Because again, our goal is to get inside the heart of France to begin to push on Germany. So Dwight D. Eisenhower, by the way, future president of the United States. Right now, he's a general in World War II. General Ike is what he goes by, his nickname. Ike T. Eisenhower will be the mastermind, the architect of this massive, brilliant event, America's real launch into World War II, called D-Day. You may have heard of the infamous D-Day. And we're going to use these Nazi spies to our advantage in this thing. We're going to send them back. Again, as spies, we're going to send them back, we're going to feed them our information. We're going to lay out our goal and send them back to Nazi forces and lay out our plan. These German troops who are working for us at this point now are going to go back to their counterparts, the German army, and inform them they have been able to infiltrate and learn of the American agenda. They've been able to learn of our American plan. And they have come to the conclusion, and they're going to spread the lie that they learned that the Americans are planning, since we can't get in by coast. They built this Atlantic Wall, this barricade, to barricade us off by coast. We're going to be coming up the English Channel, which we are. But these Nazi spies are going to relate to the Nazi army the fact the Americans are planning to come up the English Channel and go all the way up north to this place called Calais, which is about as far north as you can get up the English Channel. And that they have learned of it. That is our plan. That is our goal. We're going to try and sneak our troops in that way. Americans are coming to Calais with the goal of having the Nazi army turn its full attention, or the majority of its attention, to Calais, leaving a lot of other land along the English Channel coast vulnerable for an American invasion. Per se, we were never going to hit the beaches of the beaches of Calais. The beaches of Calais, that was the plan and the goal, to trick the Nazi army into thinking that's where we were going. When all along, our full intentions were to go and hit this place called Normandy. The beaches of Normandy. Our goal was to drop onto the beaches of Normandy, secure the beaches, and secure them for the Allied power, so all Allied ships that could come up the English Channel could safely and securely get into France by using the beaches of Normandy. Hopefully that would make this a success for us, be an easy open door to walk into France in, to help turn this thing around. That is the goal and our intention. So Eisenhower puts this thing together, and we're going to kind of use, ironically enough, the Japanese's intent. The Japanese's idea of planning ahead and waiting for a specific type of weather to do this under. And we're going to do that to a freaking T. Per se. We are absolutely dominant, because what we're going to do is we're going to drop our troops by air onto the beaches of Normandy. But we're going to do it at a very specific time and under a very specific type of weather. Right? We're going to wait, like the Japanese, let's go back and remember, the Japanese waited to attack Pearl Harbor until a morning that was crystal clear, not a cloud in the sky, so that they wouldn't have anything drilling their vision so that they would miss their targets. We don't want clear skies. We fall under a clear sky, we will be seen, right? So our goal is we're going to drop troops onto the beaches of Normandy, not at night, but not just at night. We want overcast. We want a type of weather where it is as cloudy as it could possibly be. Rainstorms rolling in type of thing. We don't want a star to be seen. We don't want the moon out. We don't want any light. We want it as dark as humanly possible, so that when we drop under the cover of darkness, hopefully we will go unseen. Right? So that is the goal. With most of Germany has their attention way up further north on a town called Calais, expecting us there. in the early 2, 3, 4 in the morning, early morning hours, much further south. This little town beach is called Normandy. Allied troops will unexpectedly drop by plane. Will be dropped. 20,000 troops roughly will drop onto the beaches of Normandy early in the morning hours of June 6th. June 6th, 1944, and make our way inland into France that way. Now, not all German forces are up in Calais, right? I mean, they are going to be scattered along the coast for protection, just in freaking case. So, I mean, it's not like there weren't German troops that we will encounter quickly after dropping in Normandy. I mean, it's a bloodbath. It's still these troops that drop will encounter German forces. There will be, fatality. There will be combat that is ensued. It's horrible. It's a huge bloodbath, huge loss of life. It is not easy by any stretch of the dang imagination. Don't get me wrong. I mean, thousands of people will lose their lives in this thing initially, but it will also be a success. And the only reason it is a for sure success due to the brilliance of the plotting and the planning and the timing. Like the Japanese planned everything and had a huge success smashing at Pearl Harbor. We planned this thing accordingly to the T, and we will have a huge success June 6, 1944. And as these 20,000 troops are claiming the beaches in the area of Normandy and the Allied powers, you've got the first wave of ships alone coming up the English Channel are carrying 150,000 Allied troops who will be able to safely now dock on the beaches of Normandy. 150,000 troops in this first wave alone will be able to enter France. We'll be able to spread out throughout France and further throughout Europe, and just slowly but surely be able to start to turn this thing around. D-Day was the turning point of World War II. It was the Gettysburg of World War II, because Hitler had this thing in the bag. Let's be very quite honest. Until our feet are on European soil, Hitler was just trouncing through Europe, had already done detrimental damage throughout, had so many countries that belonged to him, was just obliterating. I mean, just stampeding his way through Russia. France had fallen. How many of these smaller countries had we seen? Hitler's absolutely kicking ass and taking names throughout Europe until we get involved, until D-Day. When we get involved, we get inside France, this thing will become a whole new freaking ball game. Don't get too far out of myself here. So we dropped June 4th, excuse me, good God, June 6th, 1944. June 6th, 1944. 2 months later, y'all, all of northern France is under Allied control. And we are slowly and surely doing what we did in World War I, pushing Germany back. Pushing them out of France, pushing them to the borders of France. And we're going to keep going. I mean, this thing becomes a whole new ball game. The success of D-Day was a death knell. Nobody knew it at the time. Nobody knew what the future was going to hold. We can look back now and see how things transpired. But nobody knew that D-Day would end up being a death knell for the Germans. For when we were able, we had a sure open door. The gate was always open into France. We always had easy access into Europe. Nobody knew it, but that was a death knell for the Germans, because within a year, the war will be over. And Hitler will have killed himself, hiding underground like a scared little rat, which was believed for a long time. Now, not so much. It's interesting, though. This is fixing to get really freaking interesting, people. But from August of 44 on, this war just starts to fall in favor of the Allied powers. The Nazi army is getting beaten. They're getting pushed back. They're getting broken apart. This country that was on path, who felt like they were unbeatable, untouchable, is starting to crumble. Is starting to cede. And as they, okay. Oh, it's going to the back. Okay, we're good. We're good. I didn't close my gates. I was being lazy. I thought it was prettier without them. See, this is all for you guys. The virus for me. The ambiance is for you. But anyway, the heat is for me. It's cold. But where was I? Okay, so the German army is starting to crumble slowly but surely, and Hitler's own men start to freaking fall apart. It's one thing, they can't vocalize what they're feeling. They can't vocalize the fact that they know they're in trouble. They can't vocalize weakness. They can't portray weakness. They can't show weakness, right? That makes them seem shockingly weak. It makes them seem, like they're struggling. So all the fear, all the turmoil, all the chaos, all the, resentment, all the what ifs they're holding inside will start to take a hold on them piece by piece. And it gets to the point where Hitler's own men are unraveling internally so much, and everything they're keeping inside is just getting to them mentally. And this war slowly and surely will start to fall in favor of the Allied powers. And next thing you know, Hitler's own men start to crumble. They start to snap. They start to break. And you see Hitler's own men start to come to resent Hitler. You see them start to hate Hitler. You start to see these men who were so loyal and they had to a fault, to a T, start to plan assassination attempts against Hitler. Cool figure. Just saying. There will be assassination attempts as this thing rolls on against Hitler by his own men. Now, all movies with historical basis are primarily fictional, right? But, you have The Patriot, you have, all these movies out there. They're brilliant. They're fun to watch. They're great watch. But they're primarily 98%, fictional. But they do have some blips of historical accuracies in them, right? Per se. Why'd you sweep that up real fast? See, prime time! Just saying. Anyway, so they start to, movies like the movie Valkyrie, which is actually historically, does have some historical accuracies in it, such as the fact, if you're familiar with the movie Valkyrie, you're familiar with this plot twist, this plot scene in which Tom Cruise's character, because Tom Cruise is in fact one of the main, he plays one of Hitler's primary second-in-commands, and we're good. Second-in-commands, and there's this huge, the heart of the movie, there's this huge plot twist in which Hitler's own men are planning this massive assassination attempt to blow him up. Hitler's in this meeting. It shows up to this building for a meeting, and was supposed to, be in there for a specific amount of time. Well, Hitler's men had this assassination plot planned where this plane was going to fly over the building, obviously drop bombs, and drop a bomb in the building explode, Hitler assassinated, etc., etc. Well, as fate would have it, Hitler, long story short, ended up leaving moments before that. And there's this whole scene of trying to convince him to stay there, trying to get him to stay so that they can kill him. Well, he doesn't. He leaves. Like 2 minutes later, the building is blown up. Hitler comes to the conclusion that everyone, that's the writing's on the wall. His own men are trying to kill him. And no one's going to fess up to it. That's called a death sentence, right? So turns out, long story short, any man that he believes has been a part of this assassination attempt against him, he will kill himself. Kill you before you can kill me. So, in a war where he's already in trouble, in a war where his back is already starting to get pressed up against the wall, in a war where he knows, every man is critical, Hitler takes out over 4,000 of his own troops. Out of fear and suspicion, they might have been part of the assassination plot against him. So in a war when he's already falling, he's already in trouble, he's taking out his own men on top of that. It gets a little bit ridiculous, to be quite honest. It gets a little crazy as this thing rolls on. But the war will slowly start to fall. About November 1944, Hitler will go underground. He will go underground, and no one will really see him again until people hear he's committed suicide. It's interesting, right? So from 1944 on throughout Europe, nobody sees him, only those select few know where he is. And this thing just continues to fall in favor of the Allied powers. It's interesting. It takes a very interesting turn once America gets involved. Now, Roosevelt, FDR, this brilliant, phenomenal human being, he was led us up until this point through the Depression. He led us through the Depression, has done a sensational job dealing with the Depression inside our country. He's led us valiantly through World War II. The greatest president of the 1900s, hands down. You can't touch him. He may not be your personal favorite, but he is the greatest president of the 1900s. That is indisputable. And he almost lived long enough to see the end of World War II through. He will fall just short. It's really tragically sad, if we're going to be quite honest. It's just awful. It's one of those things you look back and you look at that wars like the Civil War. Lincoln gets shot 4 days after the end of the Civil War, passes away the morning of Good Friday, 5 days after the end of the war. But he at least got to live long enough to see the end of the war through. He got to live long enough to know that everything he'd stood for, everything he had fought for, everything that he had stood behind, everything he had gone through had been worth it. Because, they had won. And Lincoln got a few days to really revel in that and get to cherish that. FDR will not. FDR is going to die just shy of the end of the war with Germany. The end of the war with Germany happens at the end of April. FDR will pass away April 12th, 4 days before the final assault on Berlin begins. But up until this point, FDR, he's finished up his third term. By the way, he'll end up deciding to run for a fourth consecutive term. This time going up against Thomas E. Dewey, who was the Republican candidate. And usually I ask you if you have ever heard of this candidate's name before, and then I say, yeah, you never will again. Huh, right? Spoiler alert. You will hear the name Thomas E. Dewey again. He will be mentioned in the greatest presidential upset of 1948. So we will see Dewey again. But, they shouldn't even have an election. Nobody, not even friggin' Washington to God himself. Well, God would have won. You get the point. But nobody was going to beat him. Nobody human was going to beat him. And he wins his fourth consecutive term. But he's been really struggling in health issue. He's got coronary artery disease. He's in congestive heart failure. He's got high blood pressure. He smokes like a, chimney. He drinks. He does not take care of himself. And early on into his fourth term, his health issues are catching up with him. And he decides they have a family home down in Georgia. And they decide that they're going to go take, and by the way, Eleanor stays up in Washington, D.C. / Virginia. Lucy Mercer goes with him. But they're going to go to Georgia to this plantation. And, for a vacation, little family vacation. Well, the morning of April 12th, he wakes up and he's just got this really bad headache, right? It's this really bad headache, and it gets worse and worse as the day goes on. And then about midday, he grabs the back of his head and he's like, oh my God. He's like, I have got the worst pain in the back of my head. And then he slumps forward unconscious. Even the fire is agreeing at this point. I wonder if I can poke it a little bit. He slumps forward unconscious, right? So he is in congestive heart failure, so it is believed that maybe he has had a heart attack. So his cardiologist is called for. His cardiologist is called for. His primary physician is called for. His doctors are called for to see if anything can be done to save the great Roosevelt. But unfortunately, that's not the case because he has not had a heart attack. He has had a brain aneurysm. He has had a blood vessel in his brain burst, and he has had a brain aneurysm. And there's nothing that can be done. So later that afternoon, do I have the? I think it's 1:22. 1:22. Nope, not even close. 3:35. At 3:35 p.m. on April 12th, the great Roosevelt will pass away from a brain aneurysm. He's 62 years old. This man had been the most phenomenal, sensational president we have seen in a long time. Children under the age of 15 can't remember a day in their lives when Roosevelt wasn't in office. Right? I mean, he had been president, because when you're 1, 2, 3, you don't know who president is, right? So children under the age of 15 couldn't remember, because Roosevelt had been in office. I'm pretty sure I have the exact somewhere. Anyway, it served from March 4th, 1933 to April 12th, 1945. Just over 12 years. I mean, so it's just insane. And all it is, of course, when he passes away, I mean, the country mourns him. It's like people had personally lost Uncle Roosevelt, right? They had personally lost this family member, and it was just traumatic, and it was horrific, and it was stressful. And now our fire is back rolling. That one log's just not burning very well, is it? Oh well. Anywho, I digress. So he will pass away right before the end of the war with Germany. Here, his vice president, Harry Truman, will be pulled up to finish out and serve out the rest of his term. And it's just tragic. You know, all these editorials come out, and there was a quote that said, "Men will thank God on their knees 100 years from now that FDR was in the White House." And, I mean, we're getting there. We're, you know, what, 70, 75? 85? No, 75. 75-ish years or so. And we're still thinking God on our knees. So that quote was not wrong. But he passes away April 12th. April 16th, the final assault on Berlin begins. You know, and here's what's important to note, because we have all these allied powers fighting against Germany together. You have Russia, France, Britain, the United States, Austria, Poland, etc., Canada, blah, blah, blah. Most allied powers, Britain, France, Russia, Britain, France, us, Canada, Poland, they're all fighting together. Russia's fighting on their own. Yes, we're on allied powers. We're on the same team. But we're not fighting side by side. Russian soldiers and American soldiers have never been side by side. Russia's been fighting this physically on their own for most of it. And they're coming from the east, right? Yes, they're closing in on Germany from the east. Well, the rest of us who are all gathered together as one band are coming in from the west. And so we're just kind of, long story short, closing in. Like, you know, this circle is getting tighter and tighter and tighter. We're just closing in from all sides, while Allied powers are continuing to bomb the crap out of Berlin from the airs as everyone is closing in by land from all sides. April 20th, Hitler will officially go into the bunker, the infamous bunker. And he will make this statement: when Berlin falls, I will kill myself. Well, April 20th, which was his birth. Yeah, it was his birthday. Most of the 20th is his birthday. And I'm like, that's not right. April 28th is also his birthday. He says, when Berlin falls, I will kill myself. Well, Berlin fell on April 28th. We take the capital April 25th. By April 28th, which is my birthday, by the way, this thing is over. And now, technically, quote unquote, as promised, April 30th is the date that Hitler supposedly commits suicide. I have for you on Canvas to watch videos that talk about this subject. Because for decades, it was believed, obviously, someone died in that bunker. Hitler and his longtime companion, Eva Braun, were married April 29th, the day before. They got married just in time to die together. Very Romeo and Juliet-ish, right? Eva Braun does take, he says he spends a few minutes on April 30th with his trusted second-in-command and loved ones and family. He says his goodbyes. Closes the door. They did have 2 children together, so they found someone, obviously, who took care of their children. Their children were not in the bunker with them. Say goodbye to their children, close themselves inside. The goal was Hitler was going to shoot himself. He actually asked a doctor. He says, he asked the doctor earlier on. He says, I'm planning on killing myself. What's the best way to do it? And he said, a shot to the head would be best. So they say goodbye. They lock themselves inside. Hitler watches Eva Braun consume poison. She's going to poison herself and die. And then, supposedly, infamously, is when Hitler picks up the gun, puts it to his temple, pulls the trigger. Watch the videos I have for you on Canvas. They're fascinating. Because now, guys, it's absolutely believed. Because there was a body. There was a body recovered that was believed for a few days to be Hitler. Russia, for a long time, always believed it was Hitler. But the body that was recovered with the gunshot to the head, that almost sounded bad, gunshot to the head, turned out to be 2 inches shorter than Hitler. Guys, you don't shrink when you die. He turned out to be 2 inches shorter than Hitler, and his ears were different. His ears were lopsided, while Hitler's were straight. Now, they did recover Eva Braun's body. It was her. But Hitler was like a lot of political leaders at the time. He made use of a doppelganger. A double to be seen out in public, just in case of an assassination attempt or something of that magnitude, right? So, it is believed that Eva Braun today, present time, it is absolutely believed, there's been books, studies, research done, that Eva Braun swallowed poison, committed suicide. But then there was a back door. There was a back door to this bunker, and it's believed that Hitler's doppelganger came in the door. Hitler shot and killed his doppelganger, escaped out the back door down to this tunnel to a U-boat, a submarine. A U-boat that was waiting on him, picked him up, and this U-boat secretly took him, most likely to Argentina, where he lived out the rest of his life. People who've researched this have found sightings, have found recordings, writings, based on people in Argentina saying they actually knew Hitler, they lived amongst Hitler, etc., etc. It's fascinating. Fascinating stuff. So today we absolutely believe it was his doppelganger who died, not Hitler himself. Hitler actually survived to live the rest of his life in Argentina. But back in 1945, we absolutely believe he has killed himself. He dies, or the Capitol falls, Germany falls, Hitler commits suicide. On May 8th, the official treaty was signed, the official ceasefire was signed with Germany, ending the war. And on April 8th, 1945, the war with Germany was considered over. To this day, we still refer to May 8th as VED Day, Victory in Europe Day. Because May 8th, I'm saying this a lot of times, that might be a very, very, very specific reason. It is absolutely believed that May 8th, 1945, is the day that marks the end of the war with Germany. Half of it, one half done, one half to go. So now all attention will turn to the war with Europe. Can't talk. To the war with Japan, which the Japanese cannot recover. By 1945, the Japanese absolutely cannot recover. They're absolutely, against the ropes. We have, once again, taken complete control over the war over in Asia. But they're not going to go down without, it's not over till the fat lady sings type of scenario. They're not going to go down unless absolutely they have to. They have millions, the loss of life is staggering, millions of dollars lost. But they're still alive, and they are not going to go out unless they absolutely have to, unless there is no other option. We can tell them as many times as we do so want, guys, this thing is over. And they say, it's not over till it's over. And they did have people. They had supplies. This thing could have gone on for another, they could have gone on in this state on the defense, but been staying alive for years. There was no real end in sight. We knew we were going to win, but when were we going to win was the question. Nobody could quite figure that out because Japan had no signs of surrendering. Even though this thing was over, whether they were hoping for a miracle, whether they were believing they truly could rebound, which was silly, they were not going to give up. It was going to take an act of God to get through to them and get them to surrender quicker than not. Which led to a very interesting debate that was held now with Harry Truman, one of the most underrated presidents in history. Harry Truman was fabulous and sensational and does not deserve, in my opinion, today, the credit that he should. The credit he deserves. Because Harry Truman was really, truly one of the greats. But he was president for some really, really controversial things, which hindered his legacy, back then, to date. One of those controversial things was whether or not to make a huge move and drop this thing, that we have just created, called the atomic bomb. We're all familiar, right? We're all familiar with, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, Yep, okay, so where I want to be. We're all familiar with the fact that we were the first country to develop the atomic bomb. We tested it one time. Our recipe, we've tested it one time out in the deserts of New Mexico. And this event known as the Manhattan Project. The testing event is known as the Manhattan Project. So a lot of people are assuming, they tested it up in New York? No, it was just the name. There's flanking around in the air. There's just the name of a project. It was actually on the deserts of New Mexico because we wanted to test it somewhere where we were going to do the least damage, right? Unfortunately, we were probably going to kill snakes and this and that and blah, blah, blah. But tested out where there were no people. And the test was considered a success. The bomb went off, it had the desired effect, and we tested the radiation amounts, etc., etc. But we knew that if we dropped it on a live city, what would happen? It had the possibility of leveling the structure. Just leveling a city. All buildings just collapsing. And we knew that it'd take out hundreds of thousands of people. So the question was, we needed a big message to get through to Japan, cause them to surrender, because this thing was over. But, if Japan was going to hold out to the last instant, how many more years were we going to go through? How many more people were unnecessarily going to die before they finally surrendered when this thing was already over? maybe a big shot, a big message, such as dropping the atomic bomb, would be that finally the straw that broke the camel's back, and finally Japan would give in and surrender. That was the thought process. That was the hope. Instead of this war, continuing on unnecessarily for how much longer, and using up how much more money, how many more supplies, how many more fatalities, etc., etc. And Truman is in office, and it's like a parent who's got two kids, pulling them both different ways. One parent's wanting to go this way, other kid's pulling them this way. They're being pulled two different directions because the cabinet in the country was split whether this was the right or wrong thing to do. Dropping the atomic bomb, was it necessary? Was it realistically wise? Should we or shouldn't we? But ultimately the decision is Truman's, right? And Truman, as we all know, decides to make that move. And the first ever atomic bomb was dropped. There was a B-29. A B-29 plane known as the Enola Gay, who will fly over the city of Hiroshima and drop the first ever atomic bomb, leveling the city. Now, some people ask why Hiroshima? Because Tokyo was the capital of Japan. Why didn't we drop it on the capital? Because the capital basically is non-existent. Guys, we have done so much. The capital of Tokyo is basically already in shambles. Their capital city is in just crumbles and ruins. And of course, Japan is still refusing to give up. So the next biggest city, the second most important city in Japan, was Hiroshima, which is why it was dropped there. And obviously it had the desired effect. It just crumbled the city. And I don't want to get my numbers wrong. Where are my numbers? By the end of the year, so it just levels the city, crumbles the city. By the end of the year, 60,000... Okay, wait, hang on, blah, blah, blah. Do I not have my numbers? By the end of the year, so it kills people instantly. But by the end of the year, 60,000 people have been killed due to the atomic bomb blast. People were killed immediately. 60,000 people died later on due to radiation poisoning and things of that magnitude, becoming sick from being exposed to radiation. But altogether, in the next year, you had another 140,000 people die because, radiation exposure caused people to get cancer, caused them to get sick, blood poisoning. So long story short, whether it was immediately when the bomb was dropped or due to lasting effects of radiation exposure, the first bomb wiped out the city of Hiroshima and took out 200,000 people. It's crazy. But think about in that day and age. So eventually 200,000 people lose their lives, but thousands upon thousands lose their lives immediately. The city is leveled. And then but Japan still doesn't surrender. So a few days later, we drop a second atomic bomb on the city of Nagasaki. And that finally did it. That was dropping the second bomb finally is what caused it. Took dropping two. Their capital city is basically gone. Hiroshima, we drop an atomic bomb on. 3 days later, they still haven't surrendered. My dear God. We drop a second, and finally, after we drop the second bomb on Nagasaki, they will finally give in, and Japan will also surrender. Now my days too. By the way, August 6th was the day we dropped it on Hiroshima. All this is in the PowerPoint. August 9th, we dropped the second bomb on Nagasaki. And that will end the war. The official surrender... Oh, come on. Hey! Hey! Quit. Sorry, cats were scratching my chair. I don't have that on my phone right now. It's in the PowerPoint. It's a few months later on, though. I believe it's in September. Late August, early September, the official treaty was signed. But April 1945, the war with Germany comes to an end. August of 45, the war with Japan comes to an end. And World War II will officially conclude. Once again, with the Allied powers coming out on top, right? But still, so Truman can't even revel in the success. Truman can't revel President Truman can't revel in the success and the fact that due to the United States involvement in our activity and the fact that Allied powers came out on top. And the United States had a lot to do with it. There is no praise or there is no recognition really for him the way they should have been because the decision about dropping the atomic bomb was so controversial, and especially current and to date, not in August of 1945. He was raked over the coals for it. And again, to this day, it's still controversial. Now, there is no right or wrong answer. If we were in class, this is when I would actually, one of the few times I would force you guys to speak, because I'd be interested to hear your opinions in it, whether you think dropping it was the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. Again, there's no wrong answer. Everyone is absolutely holds the right to their opinion. Most people today regard it as, when we can look back and study it and look at the reality of the situation, most everybody credits Truman with making the right decision. Some still don't, and maybe some of y'all don't think it's the right decision, and that's okay. There's not one thing wrong. You don't have to think it was the right move. A lot of people do, not everybody. I personally, studying it, especially if you really in-depth study it, absolutely believe, as tragic as it was war. We were at war, and it was necessary at that point to end the war. Yes, so many hundreds of thousands of innocent people lost their lives, but hundreds of thousands of people unfortunately usually lose their lives in war, as awful as it is. And if this war had gone on 2 or 3 more years, more innocent, more people than that could have lost their lives, right? 400,000 people lost their lives due to the bombings. It could have been over 500,000 people lost their lives if this war continued to stretch on. So, I mean, there's just a lot that falls into it. I credit Truman and praise Truman for what I think was making the right decision. That does not mean I'm right. You might differ with me, and if you do, that is 100% okay. But it is interesting to think about. It's an interesting topic to look at. It is, because it changed the course of history, and it also ended a world war. But I am curious to see what you guys think. It's a great essay question for, an exam, if I throw that out there. But with that, World War II has come to an end. And the same year World War II comes to an end, the Cold War begins. Which is where Chapter 27 picks up. But for now, we have concluded Chapter 26. Woot woot. We are good to go. Have a fantastic rest of your weekend. Hopefully you enjoyed our lovely fire. Thankfully it lasted. And I will see you guys soon. Take care.